Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with the Decca Eloquence reissue of the Lindsay Quartet doing the Beethoven complete string quartets. Now, these were originally issued on ASV, and the Lindsay Quartet made two Beethoven cycles, the second of which was rather less successful than this one, which was the first. It was recorded between 1979 and 1984. And even though this is certainly the better of the two, I still have issues with it. It's good. It's today you're dealing with string quartets that are so talented. The players are so talented. They're so steeped in the tradition of quartet playing and in this particular repertoire, God knows. And they all take it very, very seriously. So the chances of you getting an actual disaster are, well, unlikely. You're always going to get something that's decent. And this is decent. But it does have a few problems, I think, which I want to discuss. And because I discuss sort of the problem issues, I do not want you to think that I'm ignoring the very real, qualities. That's what they are. Qualities that these performances have, because they do. They have some very good qualities. Now, the Lindsay Quartet later became the Lindsays. I think that's an English thing. The Halle Orchestra became the Halle. I wonder if the Royal Opera House Covent Garden is just going to become the Covent. I mean, there's something over there that prevents people from remembering names that have more than one word. I don't quite get that. It's a marketing thing, I know. Anyway, the Lindsays were not nearly as good as the Lindsay Quartet. They had a different violist when they remade these things, but otherwise everybody was the same. Although Peter Cropper, the first violin, who was sort of the driving force behind this whole operation, had also deteriorated by the time that second Beethoven cycle came along. So he was in better form here. He always had, little intonational issues and things, but that's okay. I mean, who doesn't, right? I mean, the Vague Quartet had intonational issues. We don't get upset with them over it. We say, well, So as far as I'm concerned, well, it happens. So what are the issues that I have with this? Well, it's very interesting. The issue I have is a certain, well, first of all, the performances are either very fast or very slow for the most part, particularly when you get to the late quartets. And that causes a certain lack of continuity in some of Beethoven's larger structures, in my particular view. It's not that the performances have to be, everything has to be at one speed. I don't mean that at all. It's just that there's a certain abruptness between sections that I'm not sure is what Beethoven quite intended, particularly when movements are designed to be played attacca. For example, the presto in the C-sharp minor quartet, ta-ta-ta-ta, ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta, that one. That goes really, really fast. And so fast that the players really have a hard time hitting the accents with the necessary force, ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta, like that. Here they play it sort of diminuendo and legato, ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta, ya-da-da-da-da, like that, sort of. I don't know. It sounds odd to me. It really does. And then at the end, they're very good observing that sul ponticello raspiness, but they do it to an exaggerated degree. And the tendency to exaggeration is something that happens. It gets a little worse as the performances go on. It really does. The Razumovskys, the first one, I adore the first Razumovsky quartet. Of course, we all do, right? It's so beautiful, that glorious cello tune to begin with. And, their tempo is almost exactly the same as the Quartetto Italiano, with a nice chugging, relaxed, cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-cha. A lot of quartets take it much more quickly, which is legitimate. Absolutely legitimate, but I like it a little slower. I like hearing that do that chuk 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 like that. But here, it's played with a certain detached quality that actually makes it sound slower than it really is, and that sort of prevents that tune from carrying the music forward. And they're like little things like that. The Heilige Dankesang, which is 18 minutes long, that's really, really long. And it's really long, especially when your tone is not the most beautiful of all the quartets I've ever heard. That's another issue that I have with the Lindsay Quartet, particularly the later version of them. Here it's not so bad. Here they don't make ugly sounds for their own sake. I think they're willing to make an ugly sound when they think Beethoven wants it, and that's okay. That's perfectly all right. But there is this sort of mythological bifurcation between, truth, expressive truth, and beauty. And the expressive truth people say that the beautiful people are doing beauty for its own sake, and the beautiful people tell the expressive people that they're just ugly and ugly, as we used to say. And the ugly folk were sort of represented by the Lindsays as they went on in their career. In the second Beethoven cycle, in their horrible Haydn performances, where they just became hack and slash and burn meisters. I mean, it was as if they were doing like forest clearing rather than quartet playing. But that doesn't happen here. That really doesn't. I only say it because I hear the seeds of it, knowing what came later, knowing what was going to happen. And of course, they became sort of a model for English string quartets. I mean, the horrifying period instrument groups like the New London Haydn Quartet, the most horrible ensemble on earth right now, and certain other groups too. And the whole period instrument thing too, which decided that you don't have to sound beautiful anymore. When the whole point of the improvements made to instruments and everything else was to make them sound wonderful so they could play this music. It was Beethoven's music that encouraged the changes in instrumental technique and construction and everything else that came later. It really was. I mean, so to try and go back and create a hypothetical ugly sound that Beethoven never would have heard, because we have no idea what the old Schuppanzig quartet sounded like. That's nonsense. We all know that, but I don't have to go there either. All I can tell you is this is a decent set of Beethoven quartets. It's very, very serious. It's very well intentioned. It has beautiful moments. The early quartets are very, very good. I really do. I really like them. They look forward rather than backwards, and because of that, they have a lot of energy and excitement and romantic expressiveness. And I like it when that aspect of the music is emphasized. The late quartets I have the biggest problem with because, like I said, I find them to be kind of spasmodic. I mean, the grosse Fuge is ugly anyway. It doesn't need any help. It really doesn't. You don't have to rip and tear at that sucker like a jackhammer ripping up asphalt. It's going to sound like that anyway. Your job is to make it as attractive and linearly clean as you possibly can and let Beethoven do his thing. But they do, I will say, add the grosse Fuge at the end of the quartet in question and add the additional finale after that Beethoven wrote later. So, I mean, yeah, it's got good stuff. It's got good stuff. If you have fond memories of this, you will be happy that this is here in a nice little box. There are excellent essays about the quartet. There's a rather bizarre essay by Tully Potter at the beginning that talks about the Bush Quartet and how Peter Cropper was influenced by the Bush Quartet. It's all about the Bush Quartet. I don't know what it has to do with these people. I mean, it's a very odd essay. It really is. And it takes a few swipes at a few other quartets who do not sound like the Bush Quartet or these people. It was totally unnecessary. But that's okay. That's okay. They have good booklets because Eloquence does a good job. And I enjoyed hearing this again, if only to confirm my initial impression that it has, let's say great moments, but less satisfying half hours. I mean, that's the paraphrase. Wagner has wonderful moments, but terrible quarter hours, or so. Whoever said that, I forget who it was. But that's how these performances strike me. Great in spots, and elsewhere. I think you can do better. I think you can do better with the Leipzig Quartet at MT&G. I think you can do better with the Quartetto Italiano. I think you can do better with the Juilliard. There are lots of wonderful Beethoven quartet cycles that I think have more polish and just as much profundity and depth, and they're all equally devoted and dedicated to the music. So you can't say that, one group is being lackadaisical in that respect. None of them are. None of them are. So it's very much your choice, as it always is, right? Keep on listening, friends. Take care.